What's going on, my people? What's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a good day today. I know it's raining outside here in Little Rock. They're talking about inclement weather. But today, I wanted to talk about how I got to this point where I'm at now, using my resume as like a guide to kind of tell you what I was thinking at that time. Working on getting all these old memories out of my head, kind of like clearing the hard drive so I can retain new information and new things to share with people. I'm going to talk about probably be all over the place a little bit, but what I was thinking during that time, things I learned, dealing with people, where my mindset was at the time. And this is why I am so adamant about telling young kids or suggesting that you should take advantage of this time of your youth when you have a lot of energy, you have a lot of innovation, you have the will to do things at a high rate, but you got to point it in the right direction. So we're gonna get into that today. Before I get into that, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the like button. Hit the like button. Comment. Let me know what you think. Let's build a community of logical thinkers. Over this time, that's how I learned how to build the logic of my thinking through trial and error. I know for a kid like me, somebody out there like me, losing your dad at a young age and not having that male leadership to really guide you in the direction that you're trying to go in, you have to do it yourself. Unfortunately, that's what happens. But the downside is a lot of trial and error, and sometimes it's more error than it is trials. But we're gonna talk about that. But be sure to hit the like button. Let me know what you think in the comments, and let's get into the show. Now, I first started working, and this job not even on a resume. This was like off the books, I guess, if you want to call it that. But I first started working in at this old gas station. It was called BP, but now it's like a Chinese Asian gas station called Hess now on Baseline and Chico. That was my first job working for Greg. Anybody know? But working for Greg, um, changing tires, changing oil. They even had a full service gas station, believe it or not. When I think it's like 2000, 2001, something like that. 99, 2000, right when I got out of ninth grade, was doing that. Learned a lot from that job. I learned a lot about, like I say, tires, cars in general. That's why I still love cars to this day. Um, Learned how to use a tire machine, learned how to patch tires, plug tires, all of that. Um, Learned about people, learned about people that's there that will work for you, people that will work for you, people that may take from you. Learned that sometimes people can have the best intentions, but you still have to watch them, I guess. And even then, you can still get burned in the process. You learn all those things. You're just so naive when you're 16. I think I was maybe 14, 15 at the time, somewhere in there. But great for me. That was a great first job. Doing it low key, doing it every day, especially in the summer and stuff, kept me out of trouble. Uh, but really learning how to understand how a car works, I didn't really soak in like I should so young, but I learned enough that it kept me from being in really crazy situations because knowing how to be in tune with your vehicle, like understanding when preventative maintenance is due, when to change your tires, where to go get tires fixed at, who do quality work. I know what that looks like working there. So that was my first job. Um, and it's not on my resume because it wasn't like on the books. I didn't get like W-2s and nothing like that. So we're going to get right into the resume now. First job on the books. This was 10th grade summer. This job, Baskin Robbins. The building is still there, but the place is not there. It's right across from where I work at now. It's funny how things come into full circle, but it was on University, small building. Worked there from like 5 to 10 or something like that. Um, Worked during the school year in the summer. I think I worked there for almost 3 years. It was something like it was no, maybe longer than that, 2 or 3 years. Yeah, about 98 to 201. Yeah, but this job was cool. Um, Used to work at night. This is before I started driving, and parents had to come pick me up or whatever. Moms and Greg, and I was actually working here and floating at BP at the same time, at different times of the season or whatever. Was doing both. Um, I learned a lot about um, the corporate world. This is my introduction to the corporate world, right? Being on time, being reliable, understanding that everybody don't think the same. Everybody don't look at coming to work on time the same, or being reliable the same. Learning about the good side of customer service, the bad side of customer service, right? Learning how to balance the register at the end of the shift, like I said, that's in the job description. Understanding how to clean ice cream bins. We guys have to clean out all that stuff at certain times of the month. And sometimes you try to avoid that day by trying not to be scheduled that day, but a lot of times it just happens and you got to get it done. Met some cool people. Um, Overall, though, good job. And this was back then, I think minimum wage was like 4.75 or something like that. Um, $5 an hour, it was something like that. And it wasn't enough to live on your own, but I was in high school, so that was my first job though. And breaking into that corporate space. And I would say every job that you work at, you should learn some kind of skill that you can take with you anywhere that you go in life. And at this job, I really learned about, like, say, being reliable, being on time, understanding introduction into the other side of the job, like double standards, being keeping yourself in a mentally stable position to be able to work day in and day out is very important. Who you bring into your life is very important. Um, the thing that's sad, it ended up closing down, but due to certain people leaving, I've learned about that too. Like certain people can be at a place and things run smooth. They hold people accountable, and people respect them enough that they'll do their job. And then if that person leaves, another person come in. People don't respect that person. People run over that person, and things just start to go downhill. And that's kind of what happened. Person left, management changed, quality started to go downhill. I'm putting myself in there. I did this. I did some of the stuff too. My homeboy used to ride by there and see me sitting outside on the bench when it was super slow. Cause I remember when I first started, it was busy. It wasn't like super busy, but it was busy enough that you would work throughout the day. And then I remember when that management change happened, it started to gradually slow down. I didn't understand it when I was young. I just I get paid either way, but I started to see the quality of people that come. I started to see that drop, and I think I was at school. I think I was like 11th, 12th grade. I think I was at school, and I got the call that it shut down. Um, and I think they just locked the doors, told nobody, man, nobody's coming back to work, and shut down. And that was the end of that. So the next job, Subway. This was around 12th grade, toward the middle to end of 12th grade. I think I was working here. And then I think I had a card in, so I would literally go to school, get out, either go home and change, or I would have my clothes in the car. It just depends on what I had going on that day. And learned a lot from this job. I learned about the whole sandwich thing, the bread, um, inventory of how they keep inventory, like why is that important? Understood dealing with people on a different level. When you at a Subway, it's you and another person. Most of the time, it's two people, and you have to build a level of trust or have some kind of mechanism in place to safeguard you from. Because the first day I started, it was just crazy. Guy I was working with, he tried to steal from the register, and he tried to tell the manager that I did it. But because the manager gave me the benefit of the doubt, he knew the dude did it because he was kind of sketchy anyway. He pretty much fired him and told me like, "Yeah, man, dude tried to throw you under the bus, but I don't see you doing something like that. So don't even worry about it." But the fact that that kind of stuff happens when you work at jobs, people will try to throw you under the bus. They'll try to do anything to get ahead, and it's unfortunate, but it's just how the world works. You start learning about the world when you start working these jobs. You start seeing things for what they are, and you can either understand and learn how to safeguard yourself along the way and counter it. That's kind of where the logic came from. Or you can get caught up in it and crash out. I chose not to crash out. I've always like tried to figure out a way. How do I counter this? How do I avoid being in this situation to even be framed for that? And there are ways to do that, but you just have to be able to think through it and like, really be able to voice to your manager or whoever's set the schedule, like, do I really want to work with this person or that person? And you start seeing like double standards for people. This happened started at basketball, but you start seeing it more. This person more lenient, this person not so lenient. He not gonna give leniency to. And um having a manager that's of quality makes a difference too. It will be some days he come in barking orders. Some days he cool, he joking. You don't realize like every because you're so young, you're dealing with adults and they have things going on in their lives and it spills over into other areas of their lives. And not saying like he coming in abusive or nothing like that. I'm just saying you just can tell like when stuff is going on in a person's life, they like a manager. Some managers, when there's something going on in their life, they really like they real picky and they start nitpicking over stuff and fussing for nothing. You like, what's going on? Because there was sometimes it was funny too. Sometimes dudes I work with, we would just be like, man, we're not cleaning up. We'll just deal with it. If he fuss, he's your fuss. And we'll come in the next day and he was like, man, y'all did a great job for cleaning the stove. We just looked at each other like, okay. And then there'll be times we clean the stove, out the floor and everything. And he'd be like, man, y'all didn't clean the stove. It's like, and sometimes this is what I learned too. You have to know what you do. You have to know that you checked all the boxes. And that's just what it is. Don't learn how to verify things that you do for yourself. Don't allow, don't fall into the trap because a lot of people do this that I learned. Even I had to get out of this. You wait on somebody else to validate what you're doing. And it's just not the case. But when you work these kind of jobs, these are not career jobs. And a lot of times the feedback from the manager is always happening when you do that. So a job before I get to the hospital, I think when I graduated high school, the reason why I didn't put it on here because they closed down, they moved. It was a dealership, a crane, matter of fact, crane dealership. It was over there on University. I think it's like a Habitat for Humanity now, but they used to have a detail shop in the back, and I used to work there and wash cars. Um, I learned a lot working there. And what was I doing around these times? Let's say when I was in high school, I wasn't applying myself like I should. And that's why I always try to tell kids, man, find a way to apply yourself in something. I was going to work every day, helping pay bills. Mindset was on some other stuff. And I was just hanging out, working, paying bills, school, working, paying bills, hanging out, coming back home, do all those things, right? Just hanging out pretty much. I should have been making a strategy on what I'm going to do when I graduate high school. Did I think about it sometimes? I did. But after I think about it, I would move on to something else. And this is why I say a lot of times when you're in high school, especially if you got a car or you got a homeboys that got a car, you moving around so much, you're not sitting around thinking about what is next after I graduate. Or you don't have male figures to really sit you down and talk about strategy because they're surviving as well. But through hindsight, and I will pass this insight back, be still, learn how to make a strategy, and understand what am I going to do when I graduate high school? How do I get to a place of stability where I can sustain and then develop, craft my skill, really sharpen it so the value increases? So, graduated, worked at Crane, manager there. Definitely not a career job. You can make it a career, but it wasn't a career job. Learned about car salesmen a little bit. That's why I didn't want to be one. Not my thing. Um, Learned about working under people with different agendas. How I got this job, shout out, I will say his name, shout out to Troy, man. Troy got me that job. He put me on. Shout out to Troy, man. Much love to him. But worked back there, and what I found out was the guy who was over that, he would hire mostly people who was on like parole, probation that needed a job. And he used that as a foothold to keep them under control, I guess, right? And this guy wasn't, he was my color. He wasn't the other color. He wasn't an orange. He was an apple. However, he would use the fact that they had to have a job in order to pay the probationary fees and try to live, week to week because he got paid every week. So he used that as a leash over them. And we would clash heads a lot, probably because I was young and man, just out of there. But we would clash a lot, and he would tell me these things like, I don't really hire dudes your age. I don't really hire young dudes. And he said, I hire dudes like this because they have to work. They have to be somewhat reliable, or consequences for them would be could be devastating. But somebody like you don't have to do this. You can leave at any time. It won't hurt you at all. When I heard him tell me this, I thought it was the craziest thing. And when I got older and started seeing stuff, I understood, even though I didn't agree with it, but I understood what he was saying. I just hate that people do people like that. It's unfortunate, but that's why it's important. I always tell you, anybody, don't put yourself in a situation where you gotta deal with the legal system because it's a lot of other things that come with it once you get in that legal system. You'll have people like this that know you dealing with the legal system. They know that you got to keep a job, and they will use that as leverage against you. It happens all the time. So, with that being said, left there, went to St. Vincent Hospital. Or doctors. It was doctors back then. Like I say, St. Vincent because doctors end up closing. But that job was awesome, but that's when I really started to um, feel myself. That's when I really started to play around in the gray area. That's when it really, because I had too much time on my hands. This is when I should have been spending more time investing in education and developing my skills. This is the time because this job was being a lab courier, doctors, hospital lab closed, and I used to have to drive lab specimens from Doctor's Hospital over to St. Vincent's lab. That's all I did. It was that easy. I would get a call on a company cell phone. Hey, we got this. Can you come get this? Either from the lab or NICU or man, sometimes the Living Hope. You get these specimens and you take them over to the lab in St. Vincent Hospital. So I would be driving a Geo Metro back and forth. This job was the first time I started to experience the race stuff, right? You start experiencing people just not liking you for whatever reason, skin color, or just don't like you or whatever. And this is what I'm saying is you have to get to a place where you verify your own skills and know how good you are, because people will not like you just cuz, and you can't control that. And I think I used to crash out a lot at this job because I'm thinking I'm doing my job, stuff is getting across, but people are still complaining about stuff that don't make sense. I don't like the way that he wears scrubs, or I don't like because he tall. I don't know. It's weird stuff, man. Um, Imagine 100 people see you and only maybe 2 people have something to say. Very weird, but that's how it was. Some people get mad because they say he don't come up here and talk to us, which is weird because that wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. Um, I would hear in the wind. Some people didn't like me because they felt like I had an easy job or I made it look easy, which is weird. And I had to learn how to develop tough skin in a corporate place. This is why I learned it at right here. It's at here, Doctors in St. Vincent. Because I've had a lot of things like say complaints. It just don't make sense. And I had to get to that place of not allowing people to get under my skin, not giving people the power to provoke me and stuff like that. That's why I'm real big on that. I learned that here, and I had to develop that logic as I grew in the corporate world, right? So mindset here. When I worked here, this is when the schedule that I had, I was working seven days on, 7 days off, and I was working the night shift. I had so much free time on my hands. This is when um you had the freedom to really like date and do, see who I wanted to see because I had a car, had a job, money, all that stuff, was able to do all those things, and not having the discipline or not wanting to learn the discipline because I'm young. I just feel like, man, I'm just gonna do my thing or whatever. But I was definitely on some other stuff by this time. I'm telling you from experience that I should have invested my time in going to school. I could have just took one class a semester. And this is why I say that education and just knowing is important, because not only I didn't know, but I didn't take the initiative to go ask questions and see what my options were either. A lot of times people say that I didn't know. I even did that. But what I learned as I get older is, did I take the initiative to go to Pulaski Tech? Did I take the initiative to go to UALR and talk to a counselor and see what my options are? I didn't do that. I'm just being honest. I didn't do that.
I want handle the truth.
This is my mindset was money, cars, girls. I'm just being honest. Money, cars, and girls. That was my mindset. I didn't get involved in the streets, even though I was around it a little bit, but I didn't choose that. I choose money, cars, and girls. This when I worked at St. Vincent, um, this is when I started out with the Impala, like a 2000 Impala. Then I got the 2001 Monte Carlo. Oh man, I thought I was on top of the world. And then that winter, that's when I got the rims on the car. This when 20s kind of was like kind of when it first started, right? Getting the 20s on the car, right? And I thought I was on top of the world. I'm just being honest. I thought I was on top of the world, but I was not. I wasn't. Just when you're young and you think you got money, you feel like you're on top of the world and you're not. But what I will say is if you can develop the discipline to not get caught up in what your vices are, like I said, I didn't have no spiritual foundation. I would go to church sparingly, but I wasn't going like I needed to and learning like I needed to. So I was in the matrix, in the gray area, doing whatever I was doing. Don't want to get into the ugly details, but I was not where I'm at now. I was in a whole nother place. I'm just keeping it real. And that's why I'm telling the young kids, don't allow yourself to not cause yourself to develop. Another thing that happened before I got the job at Red Cross, right? No, I may have just gotten a job at Red Cross, but I was helping my mom pay bills and she ended up meeting somebody. They got engaged, they got married, and she moved to Malvern. This is when um Mike Flair started. Right? A little bit before then, but when she moved out, this is when it started, man. Woo! That's when it started. She got married. She said, I'm about to move to Malvern. Do you got it under control? I said, yes. I went and got with my boy BJ. Shout out to fam. Got with my boy fam. So I got my cousin and my homeboy. We roommated up. 3-bedroom house. 1.5 bath. All had our own rooms. And roommate, I think the rent then was $900 a month that we paid, like renting utilities and everything. And we gave her like $300 a piece. Every month, $300 a piece. And we did that for a while. I mean, listen, to have that kind of freedom and not have the discipline that you need. I mean, we had discipline, but it wasn't the discipline that we needed. We had discipline enough to know how not to get into a bind or get into trouble, but we didn't have the full discipline. We probably had like 30% discipline, in my opinion. And having, when you live on your own and you're 20, 21, 22, living on your own, and the thing is, what makes me unique was I was responsible. I paid my bills. I worked, but it was having the discipline of dealing with women. That's what I did not have. I didn't have it. Just being honest. And it wasn't more so of just going after women. Sometimes the women would approach me and I didn't have enough discipline to say, nah, I'm good. Over time, you go from being naive you go from being you don't understand, you go from being a novice, kind of like the Lion Kingdom. You go from being a cub to an adolescent, and now you a apex hunter. You know what I'm saying? And you turn, if you're not careful, you will turn into that. You will turn into like a Terminator almost, where you can just spot the situation happening before it happened, or maybe it's just me, just being that logical. You can see a situation happening before it's happening. You can tell, like, this person is ready to be cooked, and that's kind of how it went at that in those years. Um, well, I would tell a young teenager now, don't, or a 20-year old, don't get caught up in that lifestyle, because what happens is you start making the unrealistic reality that one woman can't fulfill when you try to settle down. You cannot talk to 3 or 4 different women and then try to settle down and expect one woman to do what 3 or 4 women did, however many women you talk to. That's my message to anybody that wants to do the player lifestyle. When you stop, there's going to be a learning curve, because dealing with different women and dealing with one woman, dealing with different women, dealing with one woman is totally different. It is. I don't care what nobody say, it is. So got the job at Red Cross. And let me tell you, most of these jobs I did put in a 2 weeks notice. I did put in a 2 weeks notice in St. Vincent. Got the job at Red Cross. So now check this out. Not only do I have the freedom and I'm working easy jobs. This is why I say don't do easy jobs, because easy jobs and freedom. I'm paying bills, got my own place, got my own car. Um, out here talking to girls. I think I'm 22, 23 at this time. Man, out there. And get this job at Red Cross where it's even more freedom. It's even more freedom. Get this job and you go to work, get the keys to a Dodge van, caravan, and you taking blood to the hospitals. And then I think 3 nights a week, I would get a drive a Chevy Express van from Little Rock to Jonesboro and drop off blood at their center in Jonesboro. And sometimes I have to go to Batesville and stuff like that. The job was easy. The thing I learned about working at Red Cross was it's not always about having an easy job. Drawbacks, right? I started kicking it so much, having fun so much, I started to lose focus on what I should be doing at work. Just keeping it real. I'm trying to get you to understand, like, your lifestyle sometimes can cause you to lose focus on what's really important. You have to monitor what you're doing in your lifestyle. Don't get lost in it. So driving from Jonesboro Little Rock to Jonesboro, you have to go through the freeway and go through is it 65? But you're going through Searcy, then you're going through the country road. This is before they built the new highway. And you have to have a level of focus to drive that much. And I got pulled over numerous of times in Searcy. They was notorious for it. The state trooper in Searcy or whatever. And I've gotten many of tickets. I had to pay in Searcy and stuff like that. Make sure you pay your speeding tickets. Got a story for you that's coming up on that here pretty soon. Working here, but when I was training, I learned something like being able to work a job and make it easy for you, and having to develop the freedom to do what you want to do, even though you're still working. And as long as you're working, no noise, no trouble, they don't say nothing. No noise, no worries. So go to Jonesboro. Leave here at 9. Go to Jonesboro. You get there about 11. Get to Jonesboro at 11. Drop the blood off. If you don't got to go to Batesville or Bald Knob or Newport, you can come back to Little Rock and be back in Little Rock around 1:32. You got a choice. You can either go back and clock out, or you can find something to do and clock out at 7 or 8 or something like that, whatever your shift. Because I think I went to work at 9 at night, and I would leave around 7 in the morning. It was something like that. But so you can either go back and clock out early, lose money, or you can pass that time with some and then you can go back. I'm telling you, I should have been working on my education. I should have been doing it. Another chance. I didn't do it. So working at St. Vincent for 3 years, didn't do it. Money, cars, girls, didn't do it. Working at Red Cross, 4 years, didn't do it. Didn't do it. Hanging out, or I would go home and go to sleep. Or I meet somebody up in Jonesboro. I think I was 22, something like that, 23. Hang out up there, then come back home. Done it. Too much freedom. And then somebody like me that's so logical, I make it work. Don't worry about it. No complaint from me. Because they didn't say you had to come back when you finish. You get off at 5. So I understood the language between the lines. I didn't have to get told, like, dude, just go home and go to sleep and come back at 7. You didn't have to tell me that. But that's just me. And sometimes I may have been too logical for my own demise sometimes. But what happened with Red Cross was I was kicking it so much. And you know what? Why before this happened, people used to always tell me, man, why don't you go to school? Why don't you go to school? Why don't you go to school, man? You should go to school. I was like, no, I don't want to go to school. I used to be one of those people. I don't need college. I'm good. What you're going to find out is high school diploma money is not enough. High school diploma money is not enough to live on. It was enough to live on because I was paying $300 a piece for roommates. But if I was to live on my own and do that, that would have been insane. But I'm finna show you how God works. I'm finna show you. It's pretty funny. So while I was working at Red Cross, I started to change. I started to say, you know what? I don't want to do the player lifestyle no more. Let me start working on settling down, because eventually I want to have a family, and I don't want to have a blended family like my dad did. I don't want that. I want one family unit, right? So in order to do that, I had to make that change and settle down, right? First time doing it, it didn't go well. It went somewhat well, but not well enough to get married, right? And it's on me. It wasn't on that person, it was on me. So this is before I got married, who I'm married to now. Shout out to my wife, Ashley. She know about this too. Tried to settle down. It was terrible. I didn't understand the concept of being with one woman because I didn't never try before then. Matter of fact, before I first tried this, the girls I talked before then, I never even talked about, being in a relationship. Never even talked about it. Never saying I'm your boyfriend, I'm your girlfriend. I never even talked about that. I'm just keeping it honest. I never talked about that. But tried it for 5 years, didn't work. I wasn't in a good place during that 4th and 5th year, and I'm for to break it down. And while I was with that person, I was working 2 jobs. I had got a job around 2007, I think, working at La Quinta Inn was a shuttle driver and working at Red Cross because my shift changed at Red Cross, but I think this probably was some of the reason why I put myself in this position too. Working at Red Cross, the graveyard shift, 12 midnight to 8 in the morning, something like that. And then I would go to La Quinta from 5 to 9. I would go to La Quinta 5 to 9 or 5 to 11, then go to Red Cross, do that. And then I did that for some years. And I was with somebody trying to settle down, and I was all over the place. Like I couldn't, it seemed like things were going by so fast. I really just didn't get a hold of myself, and I definitely didn't go to church at all at that point. Wasn't even trying to do it, but was trying to settle down and trying to do things somewhere right, but it wasn't. I didn't start off the right way, and it didn't work, and that's all on me because I should have had better sense than that, but I didn't, and that's why I'm so adamant about making the Thinking Game podcast. So adamant about making these Mike motivation to give you an insight on you can change. You have to want to change, and at this point, I didn't want to change, and change is internal. Another person can't make you change. It's something that you got to want to do. So, what happened after this was, I believe, this is how God sparked that change. He said, enough's enough. Playtime is over. It's time to get right, right? And sometimes, I'll talk about that in a second. So, working graveyard shift, doing these things, hanging out, going to Memphis in May, Pine Bluff, homecoming, end of the world Greek show, hanging out with the fellas, playing Madden, all of that. The girl, all of that. Getting tickets, saying speeding and stuff like that. I got a ticket that was on my personal time. Went to court, got on the payment plan, and I should have paid it right then, but I didn't. Went to Memphis in May, hung out too much, had too much fun, and totally forgot about the ticket. This is why I say you got to take care of your business. This is when I learned you got to take care of your business when you have the chance. Don't push stuff off. So I didn't do it. Totally forgot about it. I mean, totally slipped my mind. I was cleaning out my car one day, and in the center console, I actually pulled out the ticket, looked at it, looked at the date. Oh, I messed up. They had a warrant out for my arrest. Thank God I didn't get pulled over between May and June or July, however long it was. I didn't get pulled over. It's crazy, but okay. I go get the ticket paid for. I lose the probationary period and the ticket hits the record. I didn't realize, even though they did have a no tolerance policy working at Red Cross because you were driving their vehicles, they had this no tolerance thing that any tickets would not be tolerated. They used to have, if you get a ticket, you can do a defensive driving class and you good. But they said, we're not doing that no more. Zero tolerance. You get a ticket. You will be terminated unless you can do something else, right? So I paid a ticket, and I'm thinking because it's on my personal time, that's what I'm thinking. It's on a personal time. I'm thinking that it's not going to affect me because I didn't get it driving the company vehicle, right? So I didn't even think about it no more. And the thing ain't about driving, the record, it don't hit right then. It hits like every fall or something like that. It may be on the record. So I totally I totally lost sight of what was going on. I thought it was handled. I paid it, but it hit my record, right? I was going to work. I think they wanted me to go to Jonesboro again because something happened. And I was going in on a Sunday, and my manager was there. Rest in peace, Chuck, but he was there. And I'm thinking, why is Chuck here? He's never here on a Sunday. I go in, he's sitting at his desk, and I can hear it to this day. Hey, Michael, come in here. He's from Bauxite, man. Cool dude. He showed me. I could tell he didn't want to do it because he was about as frustrated as me because I was always there, reliable. He said, "Man, I hate to have to do this, but man, what in the world? I can't I can't do nothing. I gotta let you go." I'm like, "What?" And I was like, "I got this on my personal time. I didn't get this driving in Red Cross." And he was like, "It don't matter. It's just on your driving record, and you drive for Red Cross. We don't have any other positions you can do, so we're gonna have to let you go." Okay, so wasn't nothing I could do at that point. I went and sat in the car, and I was like, "Man, what am I gonna do? I just lost my job." Um, Went back and because I think I was hanging with the fellas before I went to work. I went back and told them. I was just sitting there thinking, like, man, I got to figure this out. That was the turning point, and I'm gonna show you how God worked. I thought that I had a job at La Quinta, I'd be straight, but unbeknown to me, working at La Quinta, you learn about the people that don't like you, right? It was a dude. I ain't gonna say dude name, but dude was a straight hater, man. Older cat. That's why I had a problem dealing with older cats, man, because you always get that kind of static from him. He got somebody to say that I got in the car smelling like smoke, which I don't smoke, and that I took them a different route to the VA, in which I took a different route because of the traffic. However, came into work. No, they called me in. I think that was and they terminated me just off of those allegations, no investigation, nothing. And I was stripped down to no job at that point. Nothing. Now I'm really thinking, what in the world? And I was dating somebody, which was tough because I lived in Little Rock. They live where they live. And I just didn't have no money coming in. I had to know what was left over from the last few checks, but really didn't have no money coming in, right? So after you get past those jobs, and pretty much what I learned from those jobs is how to manage your time when you really on top of your game, how to manage your time. But I should have been investing time in education. But between leaving La Quinta and getting this job at Walmart, this is when the change. This is when I had to figure it out, right? I couldn't find another job to save my life. I looked everywhere. Everywhere. My mom had to encourage me in so many ways, go to the unemployment office. And if I take a long time, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to give you, it's hard to talk about this stuff in 5 minutes. I'm trying to give you a understanding of how you think you have things figured out. And sometimes if you believe in God, I know I do, God has a way of allowing his permissive will. He don't approve it, but it's permitted because you're so hard-headed. I was hard-headed. And then you will come to a point where it's like, okay, permit over. Now it's time to get back on track. and this is what happened. But before you get back on track, you have to go through some things in order to motivate you not to get back to this point. Because I don't like backtracking. That's one of my things I learned too. I don't like backtracking. However, went to the unemployment office. The most humbling experience I've ever been through. Probably one of the most. Probably got to be top 3. You got to get in line. You go in there, put your stuff in the computer. And then, granted, it sounds simple saying it, but it may take you 3 hours. You may get there at 7 and may not leave till about 1. That's how long it takes. So you go back there and talk to these people. They ask you what happened. We'll talk to the job, see what happened. And of course, they tried to fight it because they said I got fired because I had a ticket. So I was disqualified and I had to wait until I think you get disqualified for so many weeks, then you get it. Then I was on unemployment. That's when I realized I gotta do something because I can't find a job. The only skills that I have that's documented is being a shuttle driver in the past few years, and it's not a lot of shuttle driver jobs out there, or shuttle driver jobs out there, or courier jobs. It's not a lot of those out there. And at this point, I didn't have any suits. I didn't have any casual clothes. I didn't have any button-down shirts like this. I didn't have any of those. Just jeans, polo, t-shirts, maybe polo shirts, no dress shoes, maybe some loafers or something. That's it. So I was on unemployment for a while. While I was on unemployment, when I got that established, my mom suggested that I should go to school. Still was kind of leery about it. And I ended up going to Pulaski Tech in Saline County because I said if I'm gonna start light to kind of get the hang of it, see what I need to do. And that's when I went there. I didn't take the ACT or the SAT. That's why I say you should take that in high school. It will save you a lot of time, but I didn't. So I had to take the compass test, the placement test. And I didn't start out in regular school right away. I did the trade part first. I went for auto body collision and repair, right? Because I like cars. That's why I was kind of basing around. I like cars. I like painting cars. So why don't I go to school for it? And I did. Shout out to Jacob Stanley, cool teacher. So I get in these classes. I start taking these classes, and I start to realize, like, okay, college is not as bad as high school because you get to pick what you want to take, except for the core classes. But when you major in something, you pick that. It's not picked for you. I like that. So I started going to school. I took that class. And before I finished the auto body and collision, he told me that Jacob Stanley told me that I think you should actually go to school for more. Don't just settle for this certificate because I see the brightness in you. And guess what, guys? He was not black. He is an orange. You know what I'm saying? As orange as they can get. And he told me that. That's why I don't get caught up in racism. Are there people that's racist? Sure. But not everybody is, right? So he encouraged me to go to college. I started looking into that. I always like information technology. I just didn't know what it was called back then. I didn't know. I'm telling you, I didn't. I always kind of gravitated towards computers or like routers and switches and stuff. Like I see people going to network cabinets when I used to work at St. Vincent, but they would never tell you what it was. They was kind of gatekeeping the information, right? Or whatever. Maybe I didn't talk to them, ask the right questions. Who knows? But when I started, this is why I say you got to take the initiative. I started to look it up for myself because this kind of when the internet kind of was the thing then, and you can look this stuff up on YouTube and Google and stuff. And that's when I find out that they had these classes at Pulaski Tech on Cisco. routers and switches and PC repair and stuff like that. I get signed up at Pulaski Tech in North Little Rock. I start taking those classes. And while I'm doing that, I found a part-time job at Walmart. Now, there are other jobs in between this, but I wasn't there long enough. But I found a job at Walmart. And this is also when I found my wife as well. I was working at Walmart. This is really when the change had really I'm past the pivot point when I'm turning around. Now I'm going towards the change. I'm going towards the new direction, right? Going towards God instead of going the other way. Working at Walmart, definitely humbling experience. I used to think Walmart was the place to work. Not at that level. Worked there until I could find something better. Worked in the men's department, folding clothes and stuff like that. The only thing I didn't like about Walmart is when you had to do what the people did in the back unloading the truck. I didn't like that. But you didn't have a choice because when you work for somebody, you don't get to call the shots on what you can and can't do. It's just how it is. You don't own it. You can't set the rules unless you own it. So I worked there. That's when I met my wife. Shout out to Ashley. And started to work on that relationship. That's when I kind of, before I started talking to her, I really kind of cut off everything, talking to girls for a minute. I kind of like detox, went cold turkey. Definitely not fun to do. But if you willing to take that Pepsi challenge before you get into a relationship with another woman, I think that would be the way to go if you up for that challenge. But I love challenging myself more than probably what people know, and that's what I had to do. So I did that before I started talking to her. But even when I was talking to her, I really was talking on some friendship stuff at first. And then it just kind of blossomed into something else because we was having that conversation about, settling down. But at this point, I was going to church though. I started back. My boy Nick, he caught me at the right time. When the stars was aligned, because usually I wouldn't do it. Somebody invite me to church, I'm good. I don't want to go to church. But he caught me at the right time, at the right place. He came over to the house. He was like, "Man, have you thought about you should come check it out, man?" And I was like, you know what? If Nick go there, why I can't go there, right? Why can't these at least check it out? And when I went, I liked the preaching that I was hearing. I liked the way that the word was being interpreted and broken down, and that's what really maintained me to keep going towards God. Found a church home, and the bonus of that is my wife, future wife, was going there, right? And then I was working at Walmart and on unemployment, and that's when the change started. I remember working there, and I got this job working at the airport. This job at the airport was the last job that I would say that the last non-career job that I worked at. This was it. This was the last non-career job. And I worked there probably almost something like that, 2.5 years or something like that. But it was a full-time job, which I needed that at that time. Because I think we had just got married when I worked there. And I was going to school. I think I was in my second to last semester, I think. Yeah, second to last semester. And I was working like 2 to 11 or something like that. Cool job. It was just the people. but I was trying to get into IT. I was trying to break into IT, and it wasn't as easy as it may seem. But I worked that job until the change came. So I had made the change in my personal spiritual life. Now I was trying to work on getting into a solid career in information technology. And I'm going to say, if I didn't make the change to walk towards God, I don't think it would have happened like this. But what happened was, when I went to Pulaski Tech, I remember talking to the counselor, and I told her I got this idea. And I said, do you have to take the core classes first? The counselor said, no, you can take it however you want to take it, but you just got to take all the classes required for the 2-year degree. No problem. So I started with the major classes first, and I took the core classes last. A science class wasn't required. Only thing you had to do was English, speech communication, something like that, and the major classes, right? I started out with the programming and Cisco classes, and I got to the next to last Cisco class, and I think I was probably married almost a couple years now. And one of my homeboys told us in class that he had just got this job at this ISP place. I don't even think they use that name no more now. I can say it now, but he had got a job as a contractor making like $32 an hour or something like that. And we was excited because we was like, we never heard of that. Like before that, I didn't even think you could make that much money at a job. I didn't even think that was even possible, you know. I think I was always hovering around 12, 15, something like that. Not, 30 an hour. That was pretty crazy at that time. But I started putting my name out there. Making this, matter of fact, I used this resume, I think, yeah. And um I forgot the name of the place. It was in Texas. But I remember they called me and said, would you be willing to interview for this position? It's a contract position. We're gonna pay you $30 an hour on W-2, no benefits. And I said yes. I remember telling my wife, because I was trying to be a firefighter, but I couldn't pass. I missed the test by like 0.2 of a point. The talking interview on the camera, and now I'm talking to a camera. That's pretty funny. But remember talking to her about it, and I remember telling her that I'm not afraid to take this risk because I know I'm not gonna fail. I can only go up from here. Only go up from here. And I told her that I'm not gonna quit the airport until I know that this is real. So I interviewed with the guy. He said that they're looking for some people and they'll train you for like so many months or something like that. They just want somebody to come in and kind of know what's going on. You're not just starting from scratch, right? And I told him what I knew. I told him what I did at school, and then, we do hands-on labs and stuff like that. We use the terminal and stuff and all those things. And he said that, okay, um, I had them give you a call. I let them know we'll give you a call back, and they did. They called my the contractor who I was up under. They told him that they wanted to give me a try, and they emailed me and said he picked you, and we're gonna offer you $30 an hour. I thought that was crazy. I didn't believe it. I thought it was a scam, y'all. I'm being honest. And this was in 2012. And I remember getting all that paperwork signed and notarized and sent back to him. And I remember starting the first day. Still kind of was like, this can't be real. Went to the place, let you in, got all your credentials, got a laptop and all this stuff. And I remember telling my wife, this is legit. I'm talking to people, this is legit. Y'all, I didn't even put in a 2 weeks notice at the airport. I didn't. I didn't even go back. And it was the best thing that I could have done because it was sometimes in our community, taking those kind of risks is you kind of stay to what's safe, and you gotta know what risk to take and what not to take. And I kind of was in that kind of thing, and I was like, nah, I'm going to take this risk. I can't fail because I still, if everything else failed, I can go back to working at the airport, but I ain't trying to go back there. But I went in, and when I worked there for like a week and seeing that it was legit, I just didn't go back to the airport. It did cause me some static later, but at the end of the day, it wasn't that much static that I couldn't get through. And this was my first job working in IT/networking. This was my first job, and that's when everything really changed. I had changed spiritually. I changed as far as being married, and my career has switched from working at a job to working a career in information technology. And I've been in IT ever since 2012, pretty much. And what I want to say is you have to I had to internally make the effort to change. Nobody else could make me change. They can say the words, they can, try to plant seeds, but if I don't make the effort to change, I wouldn't have changed. I thank God for allowing me to change, giving me the time to change, because everybody don't get the time to change. But I am grateful, and I'm just getting anybody that wants to hear it. It's never too late to change. It's never too late to make a strategy. And it's never too late to want to do stuff in order to develop yourself, sharpen your skills, and increase your value. Don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid to do something that's positive that you never done before. And don't be afraid to develop yourself. Try something new, especially if what you're doing is not working. Don't be afraid to change. This is Mike Motivation. How I got to this point, narrating my old job resume. Is more to this, but this is the really when I got into IT. I want to talk about the mindset, how I should have been investing my time earlier. That's why I'm so big on it. If you got the time, invest it wisely. Thanks for watching. Comment. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button. Let's build a community of logical thinkers. Let's think our way through this, through 2026. This is Mike, and I will catch you on the next Mike Motivation.